All right, good morning, everyone. So this is day four. This is day four of our training. This is day four of our training of business analyst, product owner, and then project management session. Let's move on. I think the last time that before yesterday we did our Q&A session. We talk about the environments, the various environments that as a business system analyst or as a PO, product owner, you should know that these environments exist. Today, we're going to kick off here with requirement cycle management, right? And there are phases in requirement life cycle management. The phase one is requirement definition, very, very important phase. We started talking from the waterfall framework perspective, and then we came up to the environments. And today we'll be looking at we're looking at requirement lifecycle management. So phase one is requirement definition. Now it is one of the primary phases of requirement gathering process, commonly known as requirement extraction. So again, I'm going to keep on hammering on some of these things, and so that it will stick, right? So requirement what extraction, you're going to do everything possible, when it comes to requirement. The very first phase, it is just like the LSDLC, right? Yesterday, I know you guys did very good answering all the questions. You guys did well. You guys did so well. But extraction, you have to do everything possible to get as much information from other users, from stakeholders, whoever that you think their function, their role impacts on whatever that you're about to work on as a product function. You need to talk to them, right? You need to extract information from people. You need to there's what we call discovery phase. You need to talk to as many people as possible. Whoever that you think the business process, that the business features that you guys are about to work on, your work impact, have some integration on them, or maybe impact on their business process. You need to talk to them. So for instance, if you're working on a consumer lending platform, right? When you're working on a consumer lending platform, for instance, that work or that feature that you're working on, you might have to talk to a couple of departments. You might have to get with compliance department, because when people apply for a loan, it can be an auto loan, mortgage loan, any type of loan. You will have to use their PII, their personal information, the personal identification information, PII. And so you need to know to what length am I allowed to use their PII, their personal identification information, social security number, personal data. What can't you do? There are certain boundaries that you cannot cross, right? So it's very, very important that, okay, what am I able to do, and what can I do, and what can't I do? You don't want the organization to get themselves in trouble by getting a lot of legal suit and legal tussles, right? You don't want people to be suing the company. And so it's very, very important. You'll be interfacing with different departments, but you need to know exactly what you're getting out from the department. So like the consumer lending platform, not only would you speak to compliance department, you might talk to maybe marketing, right? Marketing is the department that is responsible for selling out that product. They will put that information on your marketing website, the main production website. They will put that information on different email, distro, whatever, bulletins and advertising. They might be putting all this content information. They might be using some digital form of advertising, putting on YouTube. So when you're watching YouTube, some advert will roll for 30 seconds, 15 seconds. All those information must conform to certain, kind of standards or, practice, right? You don't want to give information out to people, but when they actually come on the platform, what they see is different, So you need to work with marketing department so that the information that users will see somewhere by email advertising or by Facebook, by YouTube, by LinkedIn, whatever that is, they saw that information, the user experience must correspond with the data, the information that they consume out there, right? So you need to liaise with marketing to make sure that they also have the right information. You might work with the loans department, of course, because they're a department that is responsible for the disbursement of the loan. If the customer is, let's say, approved, there are different people or subject matter experts within the loans or mortgage or whatever departments that there are processes in there. And so requirement extraction, guys, very, very important in this phase. And then we have requirement validation. Requirement validation. So the requirement validation phase include analyzing the needs or conditions required to meet a new or altered product, considering needs of the various stakeholders, right? So, you get into an environment. I've been to a place where, when I started working in that environment, when I say that, I mean that organization, a problem statement, was thrown at me and say, hey, we have a problem with data, right? They say we have a problem with data. Okay, that's fine. So what is the exact problem with data? So apparently, in the financial or the banking institution, data is like scattered everywhere. People are they have their own silos of data that when customers walking into the branch level across the organization, some people are using Excel to gather data of customers. Let's say somebody walking into a branch and say, hey, I'm thinking about this house, thinking about this car, I'm thinking about this. People are putting those notes everywhere. So some are using Evernote, some are using sticky pads, some are using Excel, some are using Word documents. So it's all over the place, right? So there's a need for us to have one ecosystem, and then we need to be able to consolidate data so that the organization, they can take advantage of that data. Mind you, keep in mind that data is arguably the most critical asset of every organization right now on earth, right? So there's a need for us to consolidate all the data that is, coming around the whole place, that is all over the place, put it in one ecosystem, be able to transform the data. They might come in with different data formats, right? It could be a PDF, it could be a JPEG, it could be whatever the format is. We need to be able to have it all consolidated in one ecosystem, and then find a way to transform them so that we can take advantage from opportunities, from leads, feedback from customers. We need to be able to do that. So requirement validation phase include analyzing the needs condition required to meet a new or altered product, considering the needs of the various stakeholders. So as you talk to them, as you liaise with different stakeholders, you begin to understand the pain points. What are we building, right? Why are we here today? You got to be able to understand, right? Why we are here today. It is because maybe there's a non-functional system somewhere, or dysfunctional system somewhere. Something is not acting right. Something is not performing right, right? When, for instance, maybe with your platform or with the platform of that department or whatever that you guys try and solve, when maybe 200 people log in at the same time, the feature or that function will be crashing, right? That's a problem. So for the success of any project, validating requirement is very important. Requirement validation includes checking the specification, wireframe, high fidelity simulation, traceability analysis. So you got to be able to trace back different processes and different performance workflows that are in the system, different departments that interact with the same application. So as you gather requirement, you need to be able to validate them and say, okay, this is the exact thing that it needs to do. This is the exact thing that we want this condition to be, to fulfill. You need to do that. It's very, very important, right? It's a very, 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 very important thing here. And then phase 3, requirement documentation. Requirement document should cover the following things, right? So project stakeholders, requirement business analysis plan, current state analysis, scope state, specification. So as you're talking to folks, as you're validating the requirement, you also need to be able to document. And there are certain things that are very, very important for you to document. As a matter of fact, if you put in a BRD together, and we will look at the BRD, for instance, like a business requirement document. There are all type of documents that needs to be prepared, and one of them very essential is the business requirement document. So what goes in the business requirement document? There's going to be the project overview or the feature overview. You're going to have revision history or approvals, people that are signing off on that requirement. You will see things like the business processes that are being affected. You will see things like risks. What are the risks with this feature? Whatever that you're trying to build? What are the risks that you've discovered? What are the assumptions that are in there? Functional requirement, non-functional requirement as well. You will see, some data library and appendices and other things like that. So you guys will get to see an actual, business requirement document, and there are certain things that you guys will take note. So as you're doing the documentation, you need to cover some of these things out here. The current state analysis. So with every feature that we build, with every system that we build, we always need to be able to understand the current state, right? Current state analysis. We perform current state analysis and then be able to understand the future state or the desired state. Or sometimes we say the asset system. So currently, what do we have? And then the to-be system, that is, the future state, right? We need to do all those analysis, sometimes even gap analysis as well. And the scope statement specification, very important. Moving on. So stage 4, phase 4, requirement management. Requirement management process include planning, monitoring, analyzing, communicating, and managing of those requirements. If the requirement is not managed well, the end product will get affected adversely. So there are requirement management tools, right? So, Jira is an example of a requirement management tool. Yesterday, I asked you guys to share your emails. I know some of you, you've already shared your emails. If not, if I don't have your email, go ahead and share it, because I will set up your accounts in Jira, where we're going to start having hands-on very soon. You're going to start writing user stories and epics and all those things, right? That is going to take about 60% of what we'll be doing here. It's all going to be hands-on. And sometimes I will ask you guys to present. I'll ask you guys to work on use case document. And I'll say, we'll come on the platform like this. And then I say, I'll mention your name and say, you go ahead and present what you have done. And then you present to all of us, right? Or when you do some of these things, it builds your confidence, right? That is how, when you get at the workplace, when you need to present, you will not be shaking, and you will not be, you will not be scared to present to anybody. So once you do this, you become so confident, right? When you do a couple of presentations, you become so confident, and you'll be able to present to senior vice presidents, CTOs, chief technology officers of different organizations. It's very good. So Jira is one. There are other tools that are also out there for requirement management. So Jira is one. Rally is one. ClearQuest is one. Pivotal, Tracker is another one as well. We have TFS. There are so many of these requirement management tools that are out there. But what is prevailing, what is very current, people are using, is the Jira. And this is what I will set you guys in, and you guys will get some hands-on in the requirement management tool. Very important. And basically, when you get the knowledge of one requirement management tool, the knowledge that you will acquire is transferable. So even if you go to a different place and they're using a different tool, like maybe VSTS or Azure, maybe DevOps tool for requirement management, it's still going to be the same. It's not going to change, right? The knowledge transfer in there is the same. Yeah. Okay. Somebody was saying something here on the chat, right? And if you have any question as well, like I always say, put it in the chat box. I'll get it later as we move on. All right, let's move on. So, we want to talk about sources of requirement, right? So requirement can come from a different place. So far, I think we've dwelled or centered on stakeholders, and it's very important. But sometimes too, requirement can come out from different sources. Sometimes, you're not going to get it all rosy, all beautiful. You go to a place, the organization, the hierarchy and setups is so nice. You know who to talk to, you know who you have to get with to be able to understand, what you guys are trying to build and gather the requirement. No, sometimes it can be a little bit rough. When I say it can be a little bit rough, there might not be any stakeholder, and you have to fish out, and still you have to work, right? You really have to validate the reason why you are here, the reason why we employ you. So there are other sources and other places that you can look at, to be able to at least get your hands on some information about what we're building. So number one, knowledge transfer from colleagues and employees already working on that project, right? So as you get into a new environment, a new place, as you start working, you might talk to colleagues, you can talk to other employees already working on that project, and they can give you information. Trust me, I've been there, I've been there, done it, before. They'll give you a lot of information, some good, great information about what you guys are building. So that's another source, another place to look at, to get information, right, from colleagues, employees, people that you work with, right? Number two, talk about the project to other business analysts. So you might not be the only business analyst on the project, right? There might be other folks that are also business analysts on the project. And, sometimes they will assign this business analyst to train you maybe a week or two, and they will be sharing all what they know about this project with you, right? And maybe specifically what you will have on your plate. So they might not necessarily be working with you like on a daily basis. They are within the same department, same team, but they will be they might focus on a different feature, and you might also focus on another feature. But since they've been there for the longest, they'll be able to share something with you that is valuable, right? About maybe what they know about the platform, the project so far. So yeah, you'll be talking to business analysts, you'll be talking to product managers. Yeah, product managers are considered as also stakeholders as well. They might share information with you. And then project lead, you might also have a project lead, and developers, software engineers can also share some vital information about the feature set that you'll be handling as well. Another way to also get your hands on some requirement or some information is to be able to analyze a previous system version that is already implemented into the system. So the last time, I think the first day, I talk about MVP, right? So MVP is minimum viable product. So we have a very big project, huge. We want to build, like the example that I gave. What was the example? I think it is money transfer, right? Yeah, so money transfer. And I think we use the ABC Church also as an example, right? So money transfer feature, right? And then you look at the previous version. Someone is saying something. Okay, Eben, you changed something over here. I'll get to it momentarily, okay? I'll get to that question. So analyze the previous version. So, sometimes a good starting way to look at, the requirements, look at the previous version. So you need to know what was shipped out at that time. And by looking at what was shipped out, it will be able to guide you into, okay, what's the second version or the latest version that you guys want to work on, what is going to entail, right? So if you look at the previous version, let's say the MVP for the money transfer, right? We talk about the fact that the MVP, we want to be able to have a system like Western Union, MoneyGram, RIA, and all those great international money transfer. But we need to take baby steps, right? We need to take one step, one feature at a time. So we decided that our MVP will only consist of continental US transfer. We're starting off here first, and then later on in the future, we will consider how we can remit money internationally, right, outside of continental US. So you look at the version of the application that was deployed. for money remittance within the US, within the United States only. So you look at it, this is going to give you a lot of information. And sometimes you might even ask for like a test account. They will create a test account for you. You will log in into the system. And then once you see how it works, the system works currently with the MVP, this will, this user experience will help you get grounded, right? This user experience will help you get grounded. Say, okay, now that I know how this one works, this, of course, there's going to be so many parts or processes in here that will lead us into the international money transfer piece that we are about to build, right? So analyzing the previous system version is a good way to give you a head start, to understand what is coming up. And then analyzing older requirement document of the project. So sometimes you might be very lucky. It might be your lucky day that you go to an environment and then there is an older requirement document over there. When you see that, when you're able to discover something like that, you just have to, do the sign of the cross and say, hallelujah. Sometimes too, you're not going to find any older requirement document. So you have to do something from the scratch. If you're able to, if you chance on an older requirement document, right, that is the greatest thing that, any man or any woman, can have. If you chance on any older requirement document, so that will help you. You will know exactly how they work, the structures, the things that, they put into their requirement document. It's like a blueprint for you. Sometimes, keep this in mind, it might not be the greatest of all, but at least it will lead you to something, right? You have a duty and a responsibility to make it great, even if it is not great. So you have a duty and responsibility to make whatever you are about to work on great for them, right? It might not be all the best, I'm just, keeping you guys in the loop. It might not be all the best, but you have a duty to look at what has done, and then you're able to even correct it and even make it great for the new project, right? So sometimes another source to look at this is to look into past bug report or defect report. Sometimes some of the features that we'll be building, they are as a result of an issue that was discovered previously or way back, right? So if an issue gets discovered, you say, okay, there's an issue here. And sometimes that issue, we turn it into an enhancement. So as we were building our MVP, the money remittance piece for continental US, right? As we were doing it, we discovered something right in there, right? We discovered something, and as Kiwi was testing that feature, they hit on something, and then we wrote it somewhere as a bug, and we did not fix it there because we know there are so many components that are tied into the system with that defect that was discovered, and we're not going to be able to fix it at that time. But we can turn around and even make it an enhancement. So when I say make an enhancement, it can be a new feature that we can work on that will absolutely deliver great, user experience and whatever to our customers, right? We can excite them even more, So we're looking into a past bug report can help you how the bug was discovered, what are the systems that it was discovered from, the severity, the priority, the feature that it was discovered from, and other things. So all this looking into the report of a bug or a defect that was discovered previously can help you understand the requirement direction. Again, looking into installed guide, if it is available to see what are the installed requirements, can also guide us. And then analyzing the domain or knowledge, industry knowledge that the team is trying to implement. So just by looking at the domain and researching on it, these are also another source or sources of requirement. All right, moving on. If you have any question, you put it in the chat box, and I'll get to it. So let's look at requirement quality properties. So as you put in requirements together, there are certain things that you need to keep in mind, right? There are certain things that you need to keep in mind. So what are some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you write a requirement? So your requirement, your requirement needs to be atomic. So when we say atomic, what does that mean? Your requirement has to be uniquely identified, What does that also mean? What does that mean? So your requirement has to be complete. When you write a requirement, it has to be complete. Don't leave rooms for nothing. For instance, when we say complete, then if you're registering, let's say we are an LMS platform, like a learning management software, for a school, for a higher education, so when we say the users or students will log into a system, using their first name, last name, and other maybe vital information. That is very vague, right? When we want to capture the right thing over there, we will say something like, students will log into a system using their username, their password, and maybe their course code, right? So that will make it complete. If you just say student, you're writing a requirement and you just say student will log into a system using their first name, last name, and other relevant information. What exactly do you mean when you say relevant information? Relevant information can be anything, right? So we want to be complete. That is what we mean by complete, right? We want to be complete here. So you have to be specific. Say they will log in using their first name, their last name, and their maybe course code, right? That is what they will use in logging in. So don't just be throwing information out there with incomplete stuff. And then traceable, traceable is also very, very important here. That is also another property that, you have to look at, or, quality property, traceable. So when you write a requirement and you put information in and you referencing something, you need to be able to map it correctly. Don't just say, as stated in the requirement. Maybe if it's, table of content or some mapping number, be specific and say reference to 4.1 above, reference to something. You need to map it very well, right? Each and every requirement should be traceable because there are different levels of the requirement, right? So we need to be able to know maybe, student information, the teacher's information or professor's information, as mapped to maybe business requirement 4.2 or 5.7 or something. So it has to be traceable. We got to be able to trace whatever you're talking about to the specific table or whatever that you want to highlight in there. And then we say that it has to be consistent and unambiguous, right? So consistent and unambiguous, what does that mean? That means the kind of statements that you put in together, you have to be concise, straight to the point, straight. Don't be writing a whole comprehension over there that you could have just used maybe 5 words to, point that out. You let people, suffer for nothing, right? And then, prioritize and then testable. You got to be able to prioritize, and then you have to be able, your requirement has to be testable as well. So as you putting down features, you putting down information, the feature set, has to be testable. So for instance, if you're building an e-commerce platform and then there is like a checkout page or maybe a payment page or whatever the page might be, and the loading, you have to be specific that, this page should load or should complete within 5 seconds, right? If it goes beyond 5 seconds, that's a problem, right? So it has to be testable. Don't just say that, it will load in an acceptable time frame, right? That's a bad way of putting it. That's a bad way of putting it. You don't have to say it will load in an acceptable time frame, or it will load, when the customer click on here or something. You have to be specific so that, quality assurance engineers or software test engineers will know exactly what they should be looking out for. So if a page should load within 10 seconds, you put out there that, the page should load within 5 seconds. So if it goes beyond that, cap or that threshold, then we know that there's a performance issue and we need to start looking into that, right? All right. So whilst you put a requirement together, there are certain things that are very critical, and they are functional requirements and then non-functional requirement, right? Functional requirement, non-functional requirement. There are other things that are equally important, but I will highlight on these two as we move forward, right? So a software requirement, what is it? A software requirement is a functional and non-functional need to be implemented in the system, right? Functional means providing a particular service to the user, right? So keep in mind, a software requirement is a combination of both functional and non-functional need to be implemented in the system. So functional means that providing a particular service to the user, right? Very important. So as an example, let's look at an example of a functional requirement and then another example of a non-functional. So an example of a non-functional requirement, let's say on an online banking platform, a functional requirement might be when the user select transfer, once they are logging, they should be able to transfer money in between accounts. That is a feature, right? And the system must, the expectation of the system is supposed to work as such, right? When we click on the feature button, when we click on bill payment, it's supposed to redirect us to the bill payment page, right? These are all functional stuff, right? When we click on view statement, right? When we click on the view statement, it should lead us to a page where we'll see our bank statements for, the previous months. If you click on December 2020, that statement should open. If we click on November 2020, October, September 2020 within our statement view, we should be able to view our statement and what we did with our money, right? So functional requirement, that is what it is, right? Non-functional requirement, however, it can also be, so software requirement can also be a non-functional, right? It can be a performance related, and I'll give you guys different types and different examples of a non-functional requirement. Security, interoperability, all those things are non-functional requirement types. So then as an example of a non-functional requirement is where a page of a system should be visible to the users within 5 seconds, right? So within 5 seconds, 10 seconds, it should open. These are all non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements are pretty much like a quality attribute of a system, right? Keep that in mind, guys. All right. So now let's get into the meat and potato here. Functional requirements. So what's a functional requirement? A functional requirement is a description of the service that the software must offer. Again, a functional requirement is a description of the service that a software must offer to its customers, right? So customers will come on the platform hoping to see something, and if they click on it, they're trying to open it, they're trying to sign in, they're trying to sign up, register, do something, and it's not working. That means there's a problem, there's an issue. It describes a software or its subsystems. A function is nothing but input to the software system, its behavior and its output, right? So as you come into the system, you are signing up, you're doing something that's an input. And then the system will behave some way, like it is logging you in, it's letting you in into the system, some way, somehow, right? And then, you get something done, you get a report generated, you get a confirmation, you check out, you buy something, you shop for an item, whatever that you're trying to do, right? So that is what the system or the platform is offering you. It can be a calculation, it can be a data manipulation, it can be a business process, user interactions, any other specific functionality which defines what a function or system is likely to perform. We sometimes call it functional specification, right? So sometimes functional requirement, you might hear another buzzword, functional specification. It doesn't mean anything but, functional requirement, right? All right. So when you're capturing functional requirement, there are certain things that, you need to capture. There are certain things that are critical when you're capturing or when you're taking in functional requirements. And it should include some of the following. It's not limited to this, but this is just a handful. So one, details of operations that will be conducted in every screen, right? So as we're building a great, solid application, we want all these features, to work for these customers and our users. As you're capturing this requirement, there are certain things that you need to include, and one of them is details of operation that will be conducted in every screen. You need to know what is going to happen. So as the person is telling you, we'll have a screen, we'll have a page where customers come, they will see this, they will see that. You need to know every detail of operation that will be conducted, that can be executed on that screen or that page, right? Number two, you also need to know the data handling logic, okay? You need to know the data handling logic that will be entered into the system. So that's also very, very important, data handling logic. So every system, there are, two components, maybe three components in any kind of system, right? It is connected to somewhere, from the front end to back end to middleware or middle tier. There might be other APIs in it. There's so many things are happening. But when data is entered from the front end, or when the data is entered somewhere, where does it go to? We need to be able to understand how the data is processed at the back end, how the data is stored, to what table, to what other places. The stakeholder might not be able to give you all those information, but you try and understand the processes within the system, right? Data handling logics. Number 3, it should have a description of system report and other output. So as you having engagement with the stakeholder, you're trying to understand, are there going to be any reports? You ask that relevant question. Are there going to be any kind of system report that, the department might need? What are some of the reports, And then the person might tell you, oh, yeah, we will need, the sales report. We want the system to be able to generate sales report for us as well. We will need revenue report. We will need our other sales reports from other regional areas, right? Maybe the Northeast region, maybe the South region, maybe the Midwest region, and then maybe, the Pacific region, California and other places, the Pacific region. You want to be able to know, right? So if you're in Ghana, for instance, and I know a lot, you're in Ghana, you want report generated for maybe Greater Accra. You want to be able to break it down and say, you want to report for Central region, Ashanti region, Bono. Now I know there are so many regions in Ghana, over the 10 that we used to do. So all those regions, Savannah, OT, and Northern, Upper East, Upper West, right? Whatever the name might be today. So you want reports generated for all these sales in these areas, right? So the stakeholder asks you asking relevant questions about system report, other output, all these things. They'll be able to confirm, some of this, and you begin to write all these things down. So when somebody come on the platform and they are shopping, there's some output, So when they shop, when they confirm their product that they're buying or they're shopping for, something might be a confirmation. They might see a confirmation. Thank you. This is your confirmation number. There's a report on an output that is generated, right? You need to know all these things. That are we going to display an output, a confirmation number for the user or for the shopper? When they are shopping, all these things must be captured. Very, very important. Very, very important, guys. And then you also need to understand complete information about the workflows performed by the system, right? So this is also another key thing to know. Complete information about the workflows performed by the system. So you need to know in the application, in the process, there might be so many departments that are also connected to the platform. So when somebody starts a process at home, in the office, somewhere, around the world, the process get moved to the department that need to either deny or approve the person of the information that they've entered, right? If they did not submit the information that they need, they have a duty to get back to the customer and say, hey, you forgot to maybe upload your driver's license. You forgot to maybe add your tax, returns information or data, right? So this information must be in. So you need to be able to understand all the workflows, all the processes, who makes what decision at what time, ask relevant question, right? This is going to guide you into, eliciting the right information or discovering the right information from the stakeholder, right? What kind of workflows that can be performed in the system. You should also be able to define who will be able to allow to create, to modify, to edit, to deactivate, to delete data in the system. Not everybody is allowed to perform the same kind of task in the system, guys, right? So you take a look at the database access, right? Somebody is going to be able to access a certain table. Some other folks will not be able to access some table. For instance, there might be laws, some restrictions about maybe a table in a database that maybe like a salary table, right? So employees might not be able to edit information in the salary table. Just imagine if employees are able to, go into the database of get into the table of, salaries, and they're able to modify, able to edit that information. That's going to be chaos, right? It's going to be chaos if employees and everybody, customers can even get a database and they can edit information in the database. Now that's going to be chaos, right? Double, triple, chaos. So you got to be able to know access level, who can create, who can modify. So as you add a certain requirement, you asking this relevant question. So who can create here? Who can start an application here? Who are going to be the user, the primary users here? What kind of target audience are we looking at here? So you ask relevant question, right? And then you move on to the last one over here. how the system will fulfill applicable regulatory and compliance need, right? So every system or every industrial domain, you look at the healthcare, there are a lot of, compliance or, regulatory, frameworks that are in there that you guys need to adhere to, right, as a company. So, this should also guide you. You start thinking about compliance stuff, regulatory stuff, that you guys have to capture as well. So these are some of the functional requirements. Some functional requirements should include some of these things that are out here. This should guide you into, talking about the right thing, the right, asking the right questions, right, with your stakeholder or whoever you be engaging. Benefits of functional requirement. So there's a benefit of functional requirement. So when we are able to put all these things together, we're able to have all these things detailed out and build a great software. It's going to be benefit. It helps you to check whether the application is providing all the functionalities that were mentioned in the functional requirement of the application. A functional requirement document helps you to define the functionality of the system of one of its subsystems. I'm going to run through this real quick and move on. I want to get through non-functional requirements before we end today's session, so I'm running with speed. But the video is going to be available, so you guys get to see it, you guys get to watch it, and then take note. Functional requirement, along with requirement analysis, help identify missing requirement. They help clearly define the expected system service and behavior. Error caught in the functional requirement gathering stage are the cheapest to fix, right? So if you're able to discover the problems and errors and whatever in this stage, it's going to cost you less to fix. Why? Because you're able to get the right information and you're able to correct it, right? Support user goal, tasks, and activities. So these are the benefits of the functional requirement. Now, these are the types of functional requirement that you guys need to also take note of. We have transaction handling, business rules, certification handling, reporting requirement, administrative functions, authorization levels, audit tracking, external interfaces, historical data management, legal and regulatory requirements. So these are the types of functional requirements that you guys have to keep in mind. That you can be talking about business rules, you can't be talking about authorization levels, like we mentioned, who can access, who can create, who can edit, who can delete, authorization levels, who perform what at what time, right? Very important. Best practices are also here. So best practices, when you're putting requirements, functional requirement together, do not combine two requirements into one. Keep requirement granular, right? You should make each requirement as complete and accurate as possible. The document should draft all the technical requirements, map all requirements to the objective principles which contribute to successful software delivery, elicit requirement using interviews, workshop, and casual communications. If there's any known verified constraint which materially affects a requirement, then it's critical state that should be documented. It is necessary that you document all assumptions in the document. These are mistakes that people make whilst creating a functional requirement. I'm going to jump. I want to touch on this one. So what is a non-functional requirement, right? We have looked at functional requirement. Let's look at non-functional requirement. We have some 10 minutes or so to look at this. All right, so non-functional requirements specify the quality attribute of a software system. So, right, so they judge the software based on responsiveness, usability, security, portability, and other non-functional standards that are critical to the success of the software system. So anytime we're looking at non-functional requirements and the things we need to capture for a system, we are talking about the quality attributes. When you get on the platform, how does the platform respond, right? When you click on something, it responds fine. The responsiveness is great. Usability, the user-friendliness of the platform. You're able to get information, navigate around, get information that you want without struggling, right? Colors and other things are not all over the place, and other menus and other things are not all over the place. You get to what you want easily. Security, your ability to be confident that when you give your PII, your personal identifiable identification information, you are comfortable giving that information because that platform is a secure platform. It is SSL, right? Encrypted. So when you see the padlock, so when you go to a website, have you guys noticed, the small padlock sign or symbol that is, located in the URL bar or the address bar? When you type in the website, when you see that padlock, when you see that small, symbol, that means the site is secure, right? So, we need to be able to have a platform that will give people confidence to give their personal information, their social security number, their Visa, MasterCard information, all those payment type of information. They have to be confident in giving that out. Portability. So, not only are we building platforms, we might be building, cell phones, we might be building devices, other portable devices, and non-functional requirement captures capture all those, information as well. So as we are building a platform, building great product, we got to also be looking at portability. So how easily for you to be able to move that device or that product from point A to point B, right? How easy is it? Are you going to be able to move it from point A to point B? So portability, right? And this is not all, guys. This is not the exhaustive list. There's so many things to consider. And I think I have examples of other non-functional requirements in there that, if time permits, we'll look at. So an example of a non-functional requirement, just like we saw in a previous slide, how fast does a website load? 5 seconds, right? When you fail to meet some of these things, non-functional requirement, the appetite of people coming to your platform is going to dwindle. It's going to be very low, right? When I come to your platform and I can go and take a shower, come back, the page is still loading, and I can go and take my breakfast, get some work done, call family and friends, home and abroad, get to them, and your page is still loading. I don't think I'll be coming back to your website again, right? So failure to meet non-functional requirements can result in a system that fails to satisfy its user needs, right? Very important. So advantages of a non-functional requirement and disadvantages of a non-functional requirement. So non-functional requirement requires and ensure the software system follows some legal and compliance rules. So when it comes to other domains like healthcare, banking, and other domains, there are laws that that have been enshrined to make sure that as a company, as an organization, you adhere to those principles, right, out there. So security of all those information, PII. In the healthcare domain, we have something we call HIPAA. Yeah. There's a regulation in the healthcare domain that we call HIPAA. So there are HIPAA regulations and other things who can assess people's health data and other things like that. So all these things are non-functional stuff that need to be captured. I'm going to move on. So examples of a non-functional requirement. So users must change their initial sign login password. So whilst you're putting a requirement document together, this is going to be an example of non-functional requirement. So, have you guys noticed that you sign into a platform the first time and you are prompted to change your password immediately? So that's an example of what? A non-functional requirement. So users must change their initial assigned password. So if we created the account for you and you get a chance to log in, make sure that as soon as you log in, the users will be prompted, to have their password changed to their own preferred password. That's a security, type of thing, non-functional requirement, right? So once you log in, you have to change your password. And then also there might be times, maybe periodically, maybe 30 months, 30 months, 30 days, or maybe 60 days, the users will be asked again to change their password. These are all non-functional stuff, right? Employees never allowed to update their salary information. That's what I said, employees should not be allowed, other people should not be allowed to have access to some database tables, some other schemas and other things like that, right? So these are all examples of non-functional requirements. Let's look at some types of non-functional requirements. And I think that's going to be it for today. We're all left with 3 minutes. So usability requirement, serviceability requirement, manageability requirement, recoverability requirement, security requirement, data integrity requirement, capacity requirement, availability requirement, scalability. So as we're building a solution, we got to be thinking about, when we want to scale up, right? When we are expanding, if we need to expand to other places, our infrastructure and our state of architecture should be designed such that it will be easy for us to scale, right? Interoperability, reliability, maintainability, regulatory requirement, and environmental requirement. So these are the types of non-functional requirements. From tomorrow, we're going to look at this types of non-functional requirement that we need to get into our system. Now we have 2 minutes. So if there are any questions that we need to address for today? Let's get into it now. Are there anything? Questions? 2 minutes before we end today's session. So I don't see any question in the chat. Okay, so I think Eben says something. So please, considering the requirements lifecycle management, which step in the business analysis steps will you consider it? Does it would it be at the enterprise level, requirement planning, or manual level? Yeah. So here is it, guys. All that we've been doing so far, right? All that we've been doing so far is to get you guys grounded again, right? Get you guys understand processes that are in there. You are not specifically going to be using enterprise analysis or something. All those things are supposed to get you guys grounded, knowledge, so that when you are talking, when you are eliciting for information, because you have this knowledge, right? You have this in mind, you ask specific and relevant question. You're not going to be putting a requirement document. I will share with you guys a sample requirement document. There are no places that you say, and this is going to be for enterprise analysis, right? This is going to be for validation analysis. This is going to be for this, or this is going to be for that. But it's just to get you guys, grounded. All that I'm doing right now is to get you guys grounded so that when you start working, you know exactly the right information that you need to put out there. So somebody say, are we meeting? Yeah. So today is Friday. So that means we will meet. Wow, today is Friday. That's interesting. So today is Friday. So we'll meet Monday. We'll continue Monday, right? You continue Monday. So do you consider, that's another question you said, do you consider system requirement that is hardware requirement? Yes. So there are specific things that we will consider. So another question here. System requirement. Yes, system requirements are there are hardware requirements, infrastructure, architecture type of requirement that we need to consider as well. Yes, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. All right, so that's it, guys. We will meet again. Somebody say something. Can we meet tomorrow same time for 30 minutes to go? Yeah, we have so many things to do. But as and when I can get to you, I can clarify some issues for them. But we've unpacked so many things during the week from Monday to Friday. So weekends, I want you guys to go over the notes, make notes, begin to align with some of the terminologies and other things that we have talked about. I usually do weekends for interview sessions and other things like that. But so many things to do on the weekend. So if there's any question, something, you can always ping me and ask me specific questions, right? All right, guys. So that is going to be it for today, right? That's going to be it for today. Are there any question again? Where can you reach me? You can send me an email. I'll share my email. I'm always on my email. So the other question is, you can always ping me on my email. Something I need to clarify, I need to mail something, you can always ping me. Okay, so that's gonna be it, guys.